Here we go. Welcome to Tampa Home Talk with your host, native Tampa real estate girl, Katrina Madewell, a full-time passionate, out-of-the-box thinker with love for home ownership kind of realtor with nearly 30 years of combined mortgage and real estate experience. Tune in every week at this time for expert advice on everything you need to know about home ownership, finance, maintaining great credit, building wealth, and making your everyday life better, and how you can be financially successful today and tomorrow. Remember, love where you live or let Katrina fix it. Now, here's your host of Tampa Home Talk, Katrina Madewell.
Well, good morning and welcome. This is Tampa Home Talk. I'm your host, Katrina Madewell, and we got a great show lined up for you this morning. I know some of you may still be out there dealing with some of the remnants of Hurricane Milton, and we certainly had a little bit of stuff too, but nothing like some of the areas that we have seen, and probably like Danielle Evans is going to tell you. We also have Jennie Restrepo back in the house with Insured Title. Welcome back. And let's dive into the numbers this morning. And then right after we get through that, we're going to kick into the importance of an appraisal after there's a storm damage. We're going to chat about that. And then we'll also talk about some of the craziness going on in the market. Poor Sarah's still been without power. Her house got wrecked with Helene with the first storm that came through. So she has her own nonsense going on while she's also busy serving customers. Bless her. So this morning, and you know, this could be just a little post-Milton thing. It'll be interesting to follow these as we move forward. But the number of new listings coming on the market in the last 7 days, 455 new listings on the market. I really should have pulled those to see how many of those were Pinellas, how many of those were Pasco, and how many of those were Hillsborough. That might have been an interesting trend to follow. The interesting part, when I look at this, the sold data is coming in at 314, which means 85% less homes have actually sold in the last 7 days than the new listings. Now, that could be just a delay from people going out to do a reinspect, and we'll talk about that with you, Danielle, what happens after the storm. Price decreases, a sharp 864 price decreases. That tells me there's a lot of motivated sellers on the market that are going to sell. Pending home sales, 388 for a 7-day trend. And we had a sharp 242 that were canceled. And then temporary off the market, 265. Those could have been very well some. I would imagine a large percent of those had storm damage. I would not be surprised by that.
Absolutely.
So, all right. So let's talk about kind of some of the stuff you guys are seeing in the market post-Milton. Danielle, you got a bunch to say, so I'm going to start with Jennie just because a little bit different on your side, right? So what kind of things are you guys seeing from the title side now that, Helene's rolled through, Milton's rolled through, and we're trying to clean this up? Or I imagine you're seeing like delays, cancellations, like different things like that, but what sort of trends are you seeing?
Well, we're definitely seeing cancellations. Obviously, because if your situation has changed, if there's damage to the property, if the seller needs to sort that out, even one of the ladies that works in our office, they were selling their Airbnb property. It was totally flooded out. It was supposed to close this Friday, and now that buyer has canceled, which, if you're familiar with the Florida real estate contract, force majeure is that word that you now need to know about, which is...
Never have to read it until now.
Well, I highly encourage that you read it, but
you know what I'm saying.
Yes,
we reread it around this time.
This is when force majeure comes into play, which is if there's some sort of natural disaster that does give an ability within the contract to potentially for either party to cancel due to exigent circumstances. But
there's a percentage, there's a limit on how much it can be repaired and when it can be repaired. And if you can't do that, then the buyer has the right to cancel. So that's what you're seeing, right?
Exactly. And if you were already under contract, you already had your appraisal done, then the bank may be asking for a reinspection. So yes, there's lots of various things that come into play that will delay those closings. And then we only have so many people to be able to offer these services. So then we're going to see a little bit of a backup there in getting those appointments scheduled and getting that stuff back online, because you can only work within the parameters of what you can.
Yeah. And that's where Danielle comes into play, because you probably can't work fast enough right now, now, right? Like a lot of the storm cleanup people and the contractors and the people that need fixing, like the fences and all that, you're probably getting requests out the wazoo, and you were still without power when these were coming in.
And just imagine the majority of the Pinellas appraisers are flooded. They're under damage. They're not going back to work. So it's up to every other appraiser that is still functional
that has some power and internet and a computer.
We were out with no power. We were out doing final inspections, the disaster area inspection reports. We were out doing them, and they just started piling up. And I'm going to McDonald's to upload them on Wi-Fi. So we made it happen. We did what we had to, but FHA is now requiring, first time in my career, FHA is requiring the appraiser to go inside for any of these closings that are delayed, and that's very time-consuming, extremely time-consuming for us to not only get back out there, but to get inside.
Let me slow down for a minute. So if they ask for an extension of any sort, they're saying, nope, hold up, we want the appraiser to go back out
there were, I mean, we're seeing ones that have already gone to the closing table and FHA sending us out anyways. So even loans that have already closed, some of those lenders, it's part of their red tape process. They're going to send us out there for the disaster area inspection report just to have their file fully
Can you imagine
complete.
that? Like they might not have had anything in Helene, and then when Milton rolls through, now
and
there's
you have
something.
no idea what they're like, and what they're paying out for these reports is the highest I've ever seen in my career.
Well,
however,
we've seen
we have
too.
a gas shortage. We have just to give you an idea, by the time this is over, within the next month, I will need new brakes, new rotors, and new tires. From running through flood damaged areas, the amount of sand being caked up inside my brake pads, it's just destroying. It's making further, maintenance.
Just a lot of wear
and tear on something that isn't normally there. But we go down into Siesta Key, Anna Marie Island, and there's 20-foot sand dunes down there, and the roads are there, but you're driving on sand.
How different are those areas right now? Because I haven't been down there after the storm.
They're so positive. All of the areas are insanely positive, but you can see, like in Anna Marie Island, for instance, you can see this has happened so many times that the new, the ones that sold out, and then the investors came in and they built to new standards, these stilt homes. You see the devastation to the ranch style homes, and then you see the devastation to these stilt homes, and it all makes sense. It makes sense why they all need to go up, and all these one stories, unfortunately, someday they shouldn't be there. We're talking loss of life if they continue this. In the places that have seen a 15-foot storm surge, I don't think people can wrap their brain around what that means.
They were 3 times taller than the normal person.
They were doing graphics of it. The local news was showing like a person standing there and then like a graphic behind them of how high 15 feet is. Yeah. And that is going to take you all the way up to your rafters.
Like maybe you can't even get on the roof. It's above your head.
I heard somebody say, make sure you have a hatchet with you in case you have to break through your roof to get on top of it. I mean, at that point, I'm going to go. I have to go. Like, I'm not staying
Listen,
there. If there's any chance of that, that's the time to like heed the warnings. You can still be Florida strong. We're not going to revoke your flow grown stickers.
Well, let's be real about this. The news was very clear when they said, okay, A needs to evacuate, B needs to evacuate. If you're in zone C, evacuate. So they were very clear on what zone should evacuate with when, and they were pretty accurate.
And I feel like every single warning that they gave us was 100% supposed to be there, and they did. They did
a good job.
I think they did better than Irma. In Irma, they did a great job of scaring us to death.
Yeah.
And this time around, I'll tell you, there was a calm amongst it, and everybody was just uniform and ready to go. And the amount of people that left, I mean, us being right here on 75, we got to watch them all go, and we got to watch them all come back. Mm-hmm. And being out on the roads with them and seeing people stop to help their neighbor. It's just
a lot of the neighbors band together because they're so close.
But so even in the line getting gas.
Well, real quick, I want to comment on this because this is one of the things that I do love about Florida after a storm. I notice, and you guys can tell me how it is in your communities. Yours might be a little different, Danielle, but a lot of times in this day and age, neighbors might know or have met the one on each side maybe the one across the street, but largely have not really talked to their neighbors. Like everyone's busy
because
running,
of this
working.
hurricane.
They don't talk to them.
I've met every neighbor in my
they band
neighborhood
together. Yeah. So that's what I was going to say is after a storm, they band together. And I love that because, it brings people together. And it was a post I had seen from one of my friends on Facebook that said, we hadn't met or really talked to any of our neighbors, and they had kids. They've got like a slew of kids they adopted. And it's like now they are friends with all the kids in the neighborhood. Everybody knows everybody, because I know for me, like I'm trying to get the basic stuff figured out when I don't have power for 5 days. Like find me some coffee. Like I can do without air, but I need coffee,
Yeah.
So I'm like, let me get that going. Let me help my neighbor. Let me see what they need. Let's help each other, And for me, and I don't talk about this a lot, and I didn't say anything on social media, but I'll tell my radio peeps. My husband was in the hospital before, during, and after the storm, so that was interesting. Trying to do all this stuff by myself, it was a lot, and I knew how big the storms were, and I'm like, this is going to be a little different. We need to prepare because we're probably definitely going to lose power. So that was interesting, and so driving, to the hospital over 75, you can see all the traffic stacked, like what you were talking about, and it's interesting. Some people that were never going to flood, like recent people that moved here from other states.
And here's the thing that, like, I just want the world to understand, when they tell Florida to evacuate, we are talking about 23 million people. Like 23.3 million people you want to move out of the state. That's not ever going to happen. But this time I watched every place that needed to evacuate. And it wasn't this hysterical, oh my gosh, the end of the world is coming moment like Irma. Irma, I felt like gave me PTSD.
So here's the thing, too. It escaped me. I looked down and then I lost what I was going to say. And then I was thinking about Irma. We were actually
the sense of community that hurricanes bring to Florida is impeccable, because Florida, the one complaint people have is Florida doesn't have a sense of community, and this is the time that Florida shines. Like Florida shines, and I'm going to tell you, like the blue collar, the men and women that have come out and just put our communities back together, from the linemen to the tree cutters.
I saw a bunch of tree trucks, all Pennsylvania plates.
Nobody is even talking
about.
I
want to be like, thank you so much for being there.
And nobody's talking about like the fish and wildlife that are out there on airboats pulling people off of Fowler. On Fowler Ave, that water was chest deep. And that's very, very scary for that area that it's been, because they were never expected to flood on Fowler.
So Danielle, did you see like some of the areas in like Wesley Chapel, pockets of Land O'Lakes, some of these
Zephyr Hills in Dade
flooding.
City, River Road in Dade City is a lake. It's not expected even to go down. Those houses have been now sitting in water for days. Those are all tear downs.
Yeah.
Those will never. I don't know how you would put that back together unless it's a complete concrete block structure that you could tear down to the concrete block and take it down to the block. Other than that, I can't even wrap my brain around how you could save a house that's been sitting in a lake for a week.
So we've had a lot of questions come up in the last week about what do we do, right? Because the maximum flood policy limits, if people even have it, some people don't have flood insurance, is $250,000, and some of these it's not enough to rebuild the structure, which may have to happen. So FEMA, the NFIP says if you flooded twice and they've paid 2 flood claims, they won't reinsure you again. So if you can't get insurance from the NFIP, you're probably definitely not going to get it on the private market, which means you have to tear down. And so some of the things that we're seeing right now is these 0% SBA loans.
SBA is completely out of money and won't actually replenish that money until Congress goes back to work.
That's going to
So
happen.
That's December, I think.
Yeah, they're going to have to get back sooner.
Until the presidency steps up and fixes that, they can say that you can apply for the SBA loans all you want, but
you're waiting.
You're going to be waiting for funding. You're going to build your house yourself before you wait for that funding, I promise you.
Well, and here's the thing. I mean, if you're required to have flood insurance, and I imagine a lot of this is going to get remapped, and you have flooded, that's going to be a challenge, because you also need to have a permit to rebuild, and
you have to, and you make a deal with FEMA that you will cover flood insurance for the life of the home when you take these loans.
What do you mean? Make a deal with FEMA Congress? Is that what you're saying?
No, FEMA says you have to carry flood insurance. We'll do this, and this, but you have to carry flood insurance, and we're going to help you. We're going to help teach you how to carry flood insurance on your home for the life of the home, and they don't know what it's going to cost you.
That's interesting. Okay, well, this is Tampa Home Talk. It's going to get interesting, I think, over the coming months and weeks and maybe even years ahead. Our off-air number is 813-377-2775. You can call or text here at Tampa Home Talk, 813-377-2775, 813-377-2775. We'll be back right after this break. Stick around. And welcome home. This is Tampa Home Talk. I'm your host, Katrina Madewell, joined by Danielle Evans with Gateway Appraisal Services and Jennie Restrepo with Insured Title Agency, both partners here at Tampa Home Talk. And we're glad to have you guys. A little bit of off-air chatter. It probably makes sense to bring that to the air so our listeners can hear as well. Danielle, you want to jump in with some of the things you were saying? That's a good point. I mean, I'm reading it in one of these neighborhood pages that we know got flooded. And you said you fact-checked it. Where did you do that?
I did. I fact-checked it right on FEMA's website. And you would be surprised how much is on FEMA's website. I'm on it all the time for my job, but I'm only on there for two things. And I decided to just dig in there. And the whole point of FEMA is to get everybody educated on flood insurance and to get everybody to, if they should have flood insurance, get it. But they're not in the writing, and they have no idea what it's going to cost you. Well, I can tell you right now, I have plenty of homeowners in Gulf Harbors that have been my clients for decades, and progressively the taxes and insurance have become so unaffordable that they just don't have insurance. And we're not talking, oh, it's $5,000 instead of $3,000. We're talking $18,000 to $30,000 a year to insure a home.
We saw this a while back.
So now a lot of the residents in Gulf Harbors feel like they are signing a deal with the devil if they take money from FEMA. And you see up in North Carolina, the people are pushing back against FEMA, and now it's happening here too. FEMA is really in place to educate and to assist in not having to be in this situation again. And so everybody has to just like calm down, but also read the fine print and see what, you have to make the choices for your future. And many residents in Gulf Harbors are not going to be able to afford to stay living there.
So let's talk about that, because FEMA is saying that basically if they're paying a flood claim, they want you to keep flood insurance for the life of the house.
The life of the house, yeah.
Regardless of, I mean, I don't know how they could enforce that if you don't have a mortgage, but I mean,
I don't know how it's enforced, but you have a loan through them. They give you a loan. They're approving you for a loan.
To raise it.
And just like you're closing with a mortgage company, you're closing with a loan through FEMA, and there are restrictions on that loan.
Yeah, the challenge with that is if you don't know how much the flood is going to be in the future, that I can see that where would that be a problem? You don't know what you're signing up for.
You don't know what you're signing up for, and this is something, and I'm going to, and just, this isn't going to lighten the mood any, but, there was people in Gulf Harbors that the only reason why they're alive today is because of their purple mattress. I have heard the one thing I've consistently heard over and over and over again, if you ever want the best flotation device, buy a purple mattress. Because that's what they rode out the storm on.
So like the regular purple mattress you see let people sleep on.
And we're talking 83 to 85-year-old women, single women living by themselves and couldn't get out in time. And it's happened in downtown Newport Richey and in Gulf Harbors. And it's the purple mattress is really the best flotation device.
This flood thing, we saw this. I'm trying to think when this was. I mean, after 33 years, the time
we saw it.
Well, no. The time kind of blurs together. But I'm thinking a while back, and Jennie, you may or may not know, but there was a while back, because I remember, gosh, it's probably been 15 years ago, maybe longer, maybe 20 years ago, where the flood insurance just spiked. Like out of nowhere, it would just be crazy money. Like what you're saying, it would be more than the mortgage payment on some of these. And they were saying, well, that's the full actual cost to insure it. Then they put something in place where they said, oh, this is temporary, but we're reducing it. And it was like this stepped up plan. Do you know what I'm talking about? You remember when that was?
Well, I don't know exactly, but there are, so I've heard insurance agents talking about flood insurance, and I think that the legislature has changed the law that everyone is going to have some form of flood insurance starting next year. Everyone. Because
nationwide?
Florida. No, everyone
that should
in
be
Florida.
everywhere. Look at North Carolina.
Well, but
clearly places flood that aren't just Florida.
Florida is obviously we're pretty low to sea level, and so at the end of the day, like in this climate, in this world, Florida is a flood zone, period, all of it. There is a potential for the entire state to flood. We've built up land on swamp. This was a swamp. So,
and we're on limestone.
You know, and where are we going from here? I've heard insurance agents speak about the way that the flood policy used to be is that you would just you could keep putting in claims and rebuilding back the same way. Mm-hmm. So, you know, what's the definition of insanity? We're clearly going to clear out all of the funding that's ever going to be available if we just keep rebuilding back exactly the same way, knowing that, like, there's areas like Shore Acres in Pinellas County. We could have a hard rain and that whole neighborhood is flooded out. Yep. What are we doing about that? I can give a shout out to City of Tampa and Seminole Heights in that we are the Heights for a reason. We are actually higher.
Yep.
We're 41 feet above sea level. But
Tampa Heights, Seminole Heights,
go
any
Heights.
of them.
But the City of Tampa, I know everyone in my neighborhood gives them a hard time, but for the last over 4 years, they have been digging out our stormwater drains and replacing them because not only are we higher, we are one of the oldest neighborhoods of Tampa. It was the first suburb, Tampa Heights, first suburb of the City of Tampa. So imagine how old all of our pipes and how gunky they were.
My husband worked for City of Tampa for stormwater for 32 years.
Oh my gosh. Okay. So
he's retired stormwater. He knows all about those old pipes.
But they have been digging out all of our roads and we have not been happy about that. But at the end of the day, through all of these storms,
would collapse. That's why.
Through all of these storms, I get like a little puddle in my gutter. That's it. So thank you, City of Tampa, for investing in that infrastructure upgrade. But like that's
you pay for on your taxes, so don't complain about stormwater. But yeah,
hey, I mean, I'm paying into it, but how much would it cost me as an individual homeowner if I had to pay for that for just me?
A lot more.
So we're putting our money together, and thank you for investing it in something that improves our community. Like
the infrastructure,
things working.
It's so old, the roads would collapse if they didn't repair those and bring them up.
But we do see the difference between Hillsborough and Pasco because Holiday to Hudson is a prime example. The west side of US 19. There's sinkholes right in the middle of the roads that, you know, they're not necessarily fixing them. They're putting Band-Aids on them.
Yeah, well, they don't even maintain the roads. I mean, they should should incorporate that into the taxes, but they don't. You know how many tax assessments you've seen probably on title for roads in Pasco? I mean, that's a prime example. It should be part of the regular taxes, I think. But
yeah, I do too, because Pasco roads are they're not the greatest.
So, some of the things I want to circle back around to the lenders and that sort of stuff. And are you doing appraisals for people that have had damage after the storm? And tell me a little bit more about that.
First and foremost, we're not ambulance chasers, and we don't take on every order that calls. When somebody calls,
what's the benefit is what I'm trying to get at.
The benefit is that, like, the ones that I have taken on, these are elderly people, have zero plans to fix these houses. They've mitigated them. They've cut the drywall out. They're drying, and they are going to sell these properties as is. They're going to hopefully sell them to somebody within the neighborhood instead of an investor, but they need a solid opinion of value. They need it for.
Are you talking about pre-hurricane or as is after damage?
As is. Well, in some cases, as is after damage. Some cases retrospective from prior to the damage to gain permitting for the FEMA 50% rule. There are some we have clients that we've done appraisals for them in the past, and they just need an updated appraisal for a specific date so that they can get that building. This is what happens when you buy your house 20 years ago and your assessed value is super low and you think, I'm just winning. I'm not paying as much in taxes as my neighbor. I'm not going to bother to let the county know that I've improved the home, and the building value on your assessed value stays super, super low, like unrealistically low. Well, then it is up to you as a homeowner to get an appraisal every single year. If you want to bypass that tax and you think you're hiding something from the county, great. But you better protect yourself and have an appraisal done every single year.
Well, your
because
taxable value won't change if you're locked in for homestead, but you can get your building value.
Your building value needs to be up. Your building value on your assessed taxes on your property card, it'll say building value. That 50% of that building value is the amount that you can improve. There are homes, and we're talking $1 million homes down on St. Pete Beach, and I look up their property card, and the city down there is telling them you need an appraisal done because your building value is too low, and we're going to level you because of it. And it's not the case. They bought their house so long ago, and that building value is at $135,000. Well, the realistic building value prior to the damage, we're talking $650,000.
But are they allowing them to use that? Because I heard they're only using what's on the property appraiser.
No, absolutely not. In the packet, that is not true. That's a myth.
Okay.
The packet you're given from the county straight up says if you disagree with your building value, the only thing you can provide is a certified appraisal from a certified appraiser.
Got it.
And that appraiser better be well versed on the FEMA 50% rule, or do not hire them.
It's a big thing that we're going to be talking about probably for not every show, but definitely for weeks into months ahead. We'll have little snippets on things because there's a lot of this that is going on, that's happening, and we're going to continue to see this.
And there are some homes that are going to get red tagged that don't deserve to be red tagged.
Well,
this is the first time they've ever been flooded.
We'll talk about that means actually when we come back after the break. 813-377-2775. 813-377-2775. This is Tampa Home Talk. We'll be right back. Stick around. Welcome home. This is Tampa Home Talk. I'm your host, Katrina Madewell, hanging out with Danielle and Jennie with Gateway Appraisal Services and Insured Title Agency, and some interesting title stories we have, right, as it relates to, this is just something to think about, right? So if you've lived here your whole life and you have like this generational property that grandma had and great-grandma had, these are some things you probably should think about.
Yeah, so when it comes to title, I mean, obviously we're talking insurance, we're talking appraisals, and those are top of mind. But there are other things that can relate to what happens after a storm. The biggest example of generational homes happened in New Orleans after Katrina, which is family members had lived in the same property for generations. And basically, as long as you were paying your property taxes, it's not like anybody from the municipality, I think in New Orleans it's a parish, is going to come knocking on your door and say, hey, did great grandma pass away and you're still living here? That's just, if you're paying the taxes, there's no trigger.
They don't care. Yeah.
They don't care. They're not going to come track you down. That's not the administrative job of any municipality. So these people, unaware of it being ever a problem, and for generations it wasn't a problem, were living in these same homes, paying the property taxes, upkeeping the property. But now here comes Katrina with devastating...
Sorry, it wasn't me.
Not this Katrina.
Wrong Katrina. I heard all the jokes after that one.
Unfortunately, when your name is also a hurricane...
The biggest one ever to wipe
no one is going to be named Helene next year when they're born, that's for sure. And no one was named Milton.
Actually, I actually knew a Helene. I still know a Helene. But anyway.
Yes,
that's so funny.
Yes. But
after
in
the storm,
Katrina, yes. So you're living in New Orleans. You're living in this generational home that belonged to your grandma, your great grandma, who knows how far back. And here comes Katrina, the hurricane, not Madewell, wrecking everything. And now your home is essentially washed away. As Danielle's saying, it's a tear down. It's been in disgusting flood water for however long by the time the water has receded. And now what do? Do you have insurance? And if you have insurance somehow, but the property is not in your name, now the person who is the person on title is deceased, like by a couple of generations ago. what do you do? So this was a huge issue that devastated an entire community, in that now we have to dig this out and do what? Put 3 estates into probate and chain of custody, and then you have to prove that you've been living there. You're the one that's been paying the property taxes.
Wouldn't a quiet title action be easier, better, faster, cheaper?
Well, I mean, again, I'm not an attorney, so I can't give legal advice.
I would talk to an attorney about that.
So a quiet title suit is definitely a route to go, but then sometimes the courts may say there's not a precedent for this, so we can't just override the process and make a decision. Not storm related, but
I could see that. Florida. I could totally see Florida taking that route.
So not storm related, but we did have a closing that was supposed to be going through our office at Insured Title, and the woman had inherited the property from her father. They had done a quit claim deed. Dun, dun, dun. Not quick. Quit.
I quit
claim,
my job.
I'm quitting my rights on this house is essentially where the phrasing comes from. And they had done it themselves.
Don't do it.
Don't do it. They had done it themselves. Now dad is deceased. The daughter had been living in this home, I think, for 30 years. She's paying the property taxes. Title is in her name. However, it wasn't done properly. So now when dad is deceased, there's nothing to do. We can't do a corrective deed. If the person is still with us, we can do a corrective deed. It's done. It's fixed. If the person is no longer with us, that can't happen. So this woman did a quiet title suit, which is a route to go. And the courts decided against her and said, nope, now this needs to go back to probate.
So you could go back to square one anyway.
You could go back to square one, and even though she's been living in this house and no one had a problem with that, but also now her closing is delayed. That buyer potentially walks away because who knows how long this is going to take. She's now elderly and wants to sell the property and move to a retirement community. And so it just causes this big backup of what happens next.
I mean, so just off the cusp, let's say it's 2 or 3 generations back this happened, right? You got a couple probates to go through here. Is that 2 years? I mean,
I don't know. I don't know.
It
and
depends
especially
on how much stuff is there.
It depends, but now imagine in most situations, you're the one that's going through this. In that situation, all of your neighbors are now going through the same exact thing at the same exact time.
So multiply.
There's only so many judges and attorneys that can take on probate and estate planning.
Well, they don't. You have to understand it. They got to know how title works. You can't just have any
and
judge.
The insurance. Like I see the issues with the insurance. You know how many? I do a lot of probate work, and the first thing I ask them, do you have insurance? And they're like, oh yeah, it's still in my mom's policy.
Yeah.
And I hear this so much, and it just goes right over my head.
Great, mom's getting
now. Every time I hear this, I'm going to be like, you need to get that fixed.
Yes, because when you go to make the claim, the insured party is who?
Who? The dead person.
Mom who's deceased?
No.
Also, ex-spouse. You don't want them to have any claim to any
money. Because if they don't sign,
that's a big one right there that people probably don't think about.
The ex-spouse.
Chat on that a little bit so that doesn't roll through what we're saying.
Okay, so if your situation has changed,
you're married, you're a husband and a wife, you bought a property, you got insurance.
Yeah. Well, here I'll give my specific example. I bought a home prior to my marriage. It was my home. Then I got married, but once you establish that as your homesteaded primary residence, it's now your marital property, even if my ex-husband now, but my husband at the time, even if his name is not on title, it is our marital home where we have homesteaded together. Okay, so fast forward, that marriage didn't work out. We got divorced. Within a short amount of time, as soon as our papers were signed, I took him off of my homeowner's insurance policy because say I ever had to make a claim and I needed his signature, was he then going to be entitled to some of those funds? What if we are on good terms, so don't anyone think badly about my ex-husband. We're on very good terms now. But what if we weren't? And in your situation, what if you aren't? You need to make sure, so today, if you take anything away from today's show, please check your title, check your insurance policy. If you're not dealing with your insurance company right now because you were blessed and this storm avoided you, and we're all thankful for that, of course, this is your warning. Check on all of your paperwork, because do you even know what your coverages are on your policy? I don't think that I do. And on the break, we're bringing up everything on the break. On the break, we said, did you know that there's such a thing as renter's flood insurance?
Absolutely
No.
never heard of it. And I've been in the industry 21 years.
So you're a renter. You're renting
And I've been
property.
a renter
Yeah,
for the majority of my career.
Your property manager, your person running the home says, hey, you need to go get renter's insurance. Okay, great. You go get it.
Yeah.
That covers
But-
your contents.
Yeah, but then the house floods.
Do you know how many times I had renter's insurance and lived in Tarpon Springs that flood, like you said, floods on a good day?
So I heard a terrible story. Someone that our owner knows living on Madeira Beach had renter's insurance, and nope, none of her stuff is going to be covered. And by the way, if you are a landlord, if you're renting out your property, your insurance policy is for the building, not the contents. So if you are a renter right now, a tenant, do not think that the owner of this property has any coverage for you.
They definitely do not.
They definitely do not, because they can actually go in and change their policy to basically be the home and not the content, not the personal.
Well, that's what
effects.
they have to do. Because otherwise, if they don't change it to a renter policy, meaning there's a renter in there and they're stripping the contents out, and they rent the property and something happens, they could be denied a claim. So they have to.
Yeah.
They have to.
Ooh, okay, so I'm sure there's a show partner that does insurance, of
Yep.
course. You need to make that call. This is your homework assignment. I know we're already bogged down with a million things. Spooky season has been stolen from us.
Yes,
but
for
please,
sure.
call Katrina if you have questions about your home.
Well, Adam
Call-
Talley will hook you up. So we'll give out our
Adam,
off-air
yes.
number,
Yes,
which is
okay.
813-377-2775, 813-377-2775, and you can call or text that number because
Yes.
it's an off-air number, 813-377-2775.
So please put that on your list. Call this number and put in that text. I've got a question for Adam. I've got a question for Katrina. I've got a question for Danielle. If you have a question about how to look up your title, how do you hold title, or let this be your reason to update how you hold title, because everything has to line up. You don't want to give them a paperwork item that they could deny your claim, especially when you're dealing with a devastating situation.
Renters flood insurance.
Renters flood insurance.
I wonder how much that even costs.
I know, that's a good question for Adam. We're going to have to ask him that.
Or
next week.
don't rent a property in a flood area.
But think about it. Renters are not looking
imagine
at
being
any
in
of
an
that.
apartment. So think about it. What about when it floods from a pipe burst? My daughter had renter's insurance. She was on the first floor. Second floor flooded her house.
I think a pipe burst, though.
Pipe burst would be through it paid
Would be
out. It did
insurance,
pay
yeah.
her out. But now that I think about it, I'm like, wow.
It's not rising water, it's bursting water.
Yeah, it wasn't water intrusion.
Right.
Remember, we were not flooded. We had water intrusion and a hurricane. We did not have a flood. Like when you're making claims, when you're making claims to FEMA and you're making claims to your insurance company, it's water intrusion. We have not flooded.
If a tree fell on your roof and now water came in through the roof because there was a breach in your roof, that's not flooding.
And a storm surge.
So
It's questionable if it's going to be part of the flood. Like, how are they going to fight? How are these insurance companies going to fight these claims? Be very careful how you word your claims.
And I'm thinking, I mean, really, we just had Erin Donovan in here last week, and she's telling me she's still fighting claims for Medallia. How long ago was that?
I have people
years
that
ago?
3 years they have not been paid out for 3 years, and they're still fighting.
It's going to be a long road. I think people are going to have to figure out
And
what to
I
do
have
temporarily.
heard people carry flood insurance, and a flood comes, and it's not designated a flood, and flood insurance doesn't pay out. Oh gosh, I've heard it.
There's
I've had
way
clients.
too many layers here.
There are too many layers, and there's too many ways.
What do you think about the storms too, and like how far? Like, I mean, when Helene came through, it went all the way to Canada. I mean, this storm made it all the way up there. So when you think about that, I don't think it should be like, oh, it's a Florida problem. Yeah, Florida has its own challenges, but clearly hurricanes are not just a Florida problem. I mean, North Carolina is hurting.
Hurricane
very
Sandy
badly.
hit New Jersey.
Yes.
And some
So-
people never built back their homes since that.
And everybody's forgetting Hurricane Debbie did just hit. We've had 3 hurricanes and since August.
Where did
think
Debbie
this
even
was-
hit? I don't even remember.
Debbie hit Florida. It's a designated disaster.
But where?
And
Was it north Horseshoe Beach?
It's
area?
got to be north of us because it's up in Citrus. It's up in Citrus. My Citrus orders are the ones dealing with Debbie.
Yeah.
But we've had Debbie, Helene, and Milton. And then when you go on FEMA's and you look at all the tropical storms that were designated as well, I mean, we've had quite a few this year, but we haven't really had any for quite some time. And Irma and Maria were the last ones that really hurt Tampa Bay, and those were 12 years ago.
Wow.
Like,
Wait, Irma wasn't 12 years ago.
When was it? 2012?
No, we weren't.
2011.
You're gonna have to Google that.
I'm Googling it right now because
it was not 12 years ago. Irma?
Yeah, I'm telling you, it was
All right.
a long time ago.
This is Tampa Home Talk. I'm going to give out our off-air number, and then we'll confirm when Irma rolled in, but it wasn't 12. So
I'm telling you,
813-377-2775. That's our off-air number, 813-377-2775. When we come back, we're going to talk about some homes that are still faring really great. A couple of them on the river, no issues, no flooding, no hurricane damage. So those are in good shape if you're looking for a nice, great place to go it's got power and it's ready to rock. 813-377-2775. I'm your host, Katrina Madewell. We'll be right back after this break. This is Tampa Home Talk. Welcome home. This is Tampa Home Talk, and I'm your host, Katrina Madewell. So glad you're here. Thanks for hanging with us during the break. I'm chilling with Danielle Evans with Gateway Appraisal Services, and also Jennie Restrepo with Insured Title Agency. Welcome, ladies. Thanks for joining me this week. No guys in the house.
I know. I was going to say, it's an all-ladies panel.
Leo is a little bit busy, as is Adam. He's had his butt kicked for a while with insurance,
Sure.
so... All right, couple listings. Let's chat about some of these that are in rockin' shape that are amazing. So I've got one at 13242 Pendleton Street. Now, this guy hit the market right when Milton was rolling through, so a lot of people weren't paying attention.
And,
this is really a fresh
value-wise,
listing.
if anybody's not paying attention, Spring Hill is killing it.
This is
They
an
are
incredible
killing
value.
it.
So wait till I tell you about this home. This is almost 1,600 square feet. It is in move-in ready condition, freshly painted, newer roof, newer everything. It has not quite a half acre, almost
That's a
0.4
nice
acre.
size.
And not only does it have a 2-car garage, it's got a separate detached 2-car garage as well, and a pool for $315,000.
There's no place like affordable housing in Spring Hill.
Did not flood. Right?
I absolutely I've appraised in Spring Hill my entire career, but this is the first time I've really seen Spring Hill really doing
big lot,
it.
no HOA, no flooding, no damage.
And there's a
paint.
lot of new construction going on up there.
Well, and I've been seeing all over Facebook and social media, different lenders posting that there's now loan products where if you've been displaced due to a storm, you can qualify as a renter as well. 0 down loans to get you out of whatever situation you're in and into something new.
Yeah, I talked to Sarah about that, and they do offer that as well. They also have the rehab loans that they're doing too. So if it doesn't work out with the SBA, they do have that. All right, another property that I want to tell you about. There's 2 that are side by side. Now these are on the Hillsborough River.
Okay.
No flooding, no issues, no damage. Now, the cool thing about these, they're townhome style, 2-story, solid block all the way up on both of these, solid blocks. Great little area. One of these is right next door to a park, so it's got all trees, and you can buy the adjacent unit right next to it that connects if you like. These are both priced at $260,000. Pretty incredible, on the Hillsborough River. 2-bedroom, 1.5 bath, solid block, solid home, deck on the back, yard. I mean, just a fantastic
Great income
property.
potential on those
Yes,
too.
yes. And these are 2 that are side by side. So I don't know why I don't have the other one, but those are right at $260,000. We also have one. This one did not flood either, on Flamingo Drive in Newport Richey. This is 0.14 of an acre. Great little move-in ready condition. No damage from Milton or Helene. This one is coming in at almost 1,200 square feet, and it's priced right at $300,000. So no pool, none of the other fancy stuff, but a great property nevertheless. And we've got a couple rentals. So we've got one in Clearwater, unharmed. Once the beach opens, you can hop on over there. This is $1,800 per month. It is a condo. It is a studio, and it's in great condition. New dishwasher, A couple stuff has been updated, $1,800 a month. And then we've got an awesome property in Hawkstone on Redcastle Avenue, 5-bedroom, 4-bath. And this one's coming in at $4,000 a month. It is almost 3,300 square feet. Huge property, gorgeous, West Bay built home, just incredible 3-car garage. That one, someone I'm sure is going to snatch up soon too. We had quite a few showings on that one yesterday. So showings are starting to pick back up this week. One of my sellers was persistent about doing an open house last weekend, and I'm like, I think it's too soon. I think it's too soon. So my agents did it. You know, we put all the signs out. We get traffic for our open houses for sure. But the way we market it and all of our signs, not one soul came through it. And I said, it's too soon. We're not doing any open houses this weekend either. It's going to have to wait a week. We're going to wait till next weekend before we do any open houses. So if you want information on any of these, you know, I think Pendleton is going to get snapped up. I really do. This
one in Spring Hill, the pool home on
Spring
Hill for under $315. That's
not quite a half acre
and reasonable taxes.
But is this on septic and well?
I knew you were going to ask me that
because it most likely is on one or
I think it is. I think it has municipal water and septic, is what I want to say.
It's like that. Those are the ones like you can cut your utility costs real low on those. Up there in Spring Hill, a lot of them are on septic tanks, and they're really they're well built.
I'm blind. I don't have my glasses, ladies. Good luck with that one. Okay, there we go.
Yes,
so I was right. So septic
and public water is the best one, in my opinion. The best one you want, because I don't really like Florida well water because it ruins my hair. Let's be real. But I like public water, and then the septic option up there in Spring Hill. And the Spring Hill is, you're going to see now that more and more roads are going up there and connecting the 589 expressway, connecting into Newport Richey at Ridge Road. It's really expanded people being able to live up there and continue to work everywhere else.
Yes.
If you want information on any of these listings, 813-377-2775. Maybe you know a family member that just cannot take living in a rehab home while they're trying to put it all back together. I've been encouraging and talking to a lot of people about buying your future investment property. So you can buy it as a primary residence because you're going to live in it right now. And then you can decide if you want to stay there or go back or which one you want to rent when it's all said and done, because it might be a minute. 813-377-2775. That's our off-air number. If you want any information on any of our properties or rentals, 813-377-2775. So what else? What say you, Jenny? We're almost out of time. We're getting close to the top of the hour.
I just want to throw this one thing out there. If you're having drywall cut out of your home, call several companies. The average that we're hearing from our office is anywhere from $13,000 to $25,000 to have your drywall cut out. That is very, very high.
Go to Home Depot or Lowe's or wherever your hardware store is. Buy some razor blades.
It's not that easy. It's not that easy. But with elbow grease, it could be. But when you
need some help, you let me know. We'll find you some elbow grease.
You really need a reputable company if you're going to get the dry out process.
13 yeah, the dry
to
out
25 grand. That's what we're hearing. People are paying, and it's very, very high. And make sure to call and get quotes, and make sure that the people that are coming out there are reputable, because they're messing with the membrane.
Well, there's contractors taking money too. We're hearing that too, so be careful.
In title, we're all about the paperwork and giving you information about what's available in the public record. So right now, obviously, there's a lot of people that are going to be predatory, that are unlicensed, they don't have insurance. Number one, make sure that you are talking to your insurance company, because if you're making a claim for mitigating, getting this drywall out, you need to make sure that you're doing it the right way, the way that they recommend you to do it. And then also go to myfloridalicense.com, because you can double check that someone is a licensed contractor, electrician, etc.
Yeah, be careful, because there are a lot of unscrupulous people coming in and scoop it up. Off-air number 813-377-2775. Again, 813-377-2775. Love where you live, or we're gonna fix it. Welcome home.
Love where you live, or my mommy will fix it. And we're out.